Now, what was he possessed by? This is where we get into the extraordinary marshy ground of who and what an artist is. What an artist is, who an artist is simply somebody who helps you see reality again.
So today, I'm very excited to speak with Daniel K. of the DC local punk band, and he's the lead vocalist of PsyOp. They're releasing their debut EP. It's called Howl from the Void. Daniel, how are you doing, man?
Everything's gravy.
Good to hear. Good to hear. I listened to your album today, and I was blown away. It was incredible in so many different aspects. But before we listen to the art, I want to talk a little bit about your background. So could you talk about your path that you have been on to get to a point where you wanted to create art? And also, who are some of your greatest artistic influences?
Sure. I've only really recently gotten to the point where I've been able to create and bring my music to the world. I've been writing for a long time and been wanting to make music for as long as I can remember, really, but I was more focused on the words rather. This would be my debut really as a vocalist, and so the music kind of came as like an outlet for my writing, and just because I like to make loud, angry, righteous shit,
So I would be remiss if I didn't tell the audience about a short story that you allowed me to publish on Empathy Media Lab. And I think everyone should check out your writing as well. And I look forward to reading more of your work on that level and seeing that your songwriting, lyrics, and the composition of the songs are incredible. But we're going to let the songs speak for themselves. Damn. God damn. Incredible drum rolls, guitar. It's high energy. I can't wait to see it live. And
yeah, Henry's a fantastic drummer, and this is like our most kind of just straightforward punk shit, really. It's, lyrically and musically, it's just, expression of nihilism and rage and disgust.
I love the opening, and I want to get into your lyrics because I like your writing so much. Got the vision, but can't shake the coil. Film the revolt, but air the rerun. Cauterize the burn, but leave the tumor. Growing and growing and growing. There's so much there. And as I see it is like the psychology being fragmented almost as you're banging your head against the wall, almost in like a psych ward.
Yeah, the self is being fragmented essentially. But yeah, the psych ward is a really good analogy.
Talk a little bit about the pre-production, because there's a lot of people who have concepts to create an album. So you went from this concept in your head to now it's ready to be released. What was that process to help other artists out, and to kind of share how you made this chili?
Yeah, well, so PsyOp originated from poems and lyrics I had written over the course of about 7 years, give or take. I didn't really have any conception of what I wanted to do with them at the beginning. They were just really honestly kind of personal stuff. So in around 2017, I moved into a house with an old college roommate, Henry. He's the drummer in a grindcore band, No Moss. He was living with a really talented musician and producer named Jake, also known as Dag'Nabbit, which is what he releases under. And so kind of being in that atmosphere and seeing them both be incredibly talented and dedicated to music kind of inspired me to bring these pieces that were really, I've been keeping kind of close to my chest to them. And so that's kind of, yeah, it kind of piqued their interest. We made a demo track, and then we brought in a musician friend of theirs named Seth. He was an old head from the 90s punk era in New York City. Kind of had a story about that.
Yeah, what is it?
He's a bit of a character, right? I don't know if he would want me to share this, okay. But so he liked the demo track we made, but he didn't really want to work with somebody untested or unproven, what have you. So he made like this, I don't know, you'd call it like a rune or a sigil or this arcane drawing, and he wanted me to write that sigil in my own blood.
Wow.
And
that's commitment.
Yeah, to prove my commitment and my dedication and my to the elder gods or something of punk. Or so yeah, so I did that, and it wasn't a ton of blood, but it was, just a cut on the finger. But yeah, so that proved it to him, and he became a part of the project at the beginning as well. So yeah, so the motivation really was just to put something out in the world, and we didn't start with a grand concept per se, but just a collection of songs and a collection of great musicians and me.
Who are some of your greatest influences? As I like to refer to, are the people that maybe you've read the most, listened to the most. Those tend to be your greatest influences. So who are the folks that you've spent the most time with as artists that probably have influenced you?
Sure. So as far as musically, I first kind of fell in love with music when I discovered like classic 70s and 80s punk, Black Flag, Bad Brains, Replacements, Husker Du, stuff like that. Kind of going into the 90s with Fugazi and Refused at the Drive-In. So that kind of set a musical background for me. As far as lyrical influences, I kind of fell in love with the OG 70s New York punk scene. Not so much like the Ramones and the Dolls with their street punk thing, which was great, but then you'd have like Patti Smith or Television or Richard Hell kind of drawing from Rimbaud or the avant-garde, and that I thought that was really cool and kind of led me to discover other artists in poetry. So yeah, a little bit of those French symbolists from then, and then kind of going into Burroughs and the beats and a lot of other cool stuff, but I could ramble about that all day, honestly.
Let's go to the next song. The World Owes Me Something.
About that shit.
Kill the living, steal their flesh. To the land of blood and the death.
kind of refer to this song as an anti-anthem
What does that mean?
because it's kind of made as like a rousing, inspirational song, but lyrically it's kind of really about the failure of the promise made to our generation by like the fucking baby boomers and
Yeah, I love the title. The world owes me something. And then the chorus, the world owes me something, but I don't know what it is. Right.
Sure.
Like so much of your writing, you leave space for the imagination to fill in for each person to kind of answer it themselves. I like this part too on the verse that I highlighted. I'll go through it all. One day we all will die. We had a fountain, but they stripped it dry. And I feel a ripple in time itself. Stop the travesty of souls to sell. Debt collectors armed to the teeth serve the papers and they kill the thief. Anthill skyline blocks the sun like a growing carcinogen. And it speaks for itself. It speaks for itself. And I do see the other part of it at the end where I just love the artistic aspect of the very end where you just kind of fade back into this poem as the music is playing.
So that was Jake, who was producer and did a bunch of different instruments on it. That this was his idea to kind of frame it as like a speech. I think he brought in like, we had the main part of the track here, and then he put some hand claps and some cheering and stuff, and then I was like, holy shit, this is this is time for a speech, but it's not going to be a speech to move the masses to, well, I don't want to say it won't move the masses to revolution, but it's more just filled with kind of loathing and disgust and
observation of what's going on.
Yeah,
like if you're not disgusted with the world right now.
Yeah.
And
I guess is kind of inspirational in a way, but
yeah, I mean it's
eye-opening. I hope it's just eye-opening.
Anyone who's experienced losing someone from a death of despair, from an overdose or from suicide, the last line, now we are pawns of the atrociously wealthy. Our only reprieve, Xanax, blackouts, and fentanyl ODs. That does capture a zeitgeist, unfortunately, that these ODs are directly related to the atrociously wealthy.
Yeah, like
there's poverty
death
and
of despair.
Yeah,
that's a very that term really hits the nail right on the head for why our mental health is so bad as a group, cohort, whatever.
So we are on the last song before we talk a little bit more about the role of the artist. Should we just play it?
Let's go for it.
All right.
I'm sorry.
So this song features John, who's the guitarist in No Mas. He guested on guitar here, so that kind of accounts for its fucking how hard it hits, really.
Yeah, that last song, I first time playing it that loud, and you added obviously something to that, the bass at the very end. First time I heard
the
that.
bass drum. Yeah. It's just
That's an incredible album, man. A lot of work. And just to comment on that last song as an audience ear, I love and I don't know if you meant to do this, but one of the lines, "Tremble before the gates of your iniquity." I see that as hell. I don't know if you meant it that way or not, but and then when you use the word deified, that for me kind of locked that in.
Not quite a literal hell, but more like, the hell that we make of the world.
yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for sharing that album.
I'm glad to listen to it anytime.
Howl from the Void. So, I almost, we can almost like stop here because I think the art speaks for itself, but I do just want to, ask you a few more questions before we close out.
Yeah.
And I think everyone has a different answer to this question, but artists have always existed since human consciousness came to be, whatever that means. And how do you see yourself as an artist in these turbulent times?
Well, I think great art always comes out of turbulence in one way or another. Maybe not immediately. I know in my case that like I've been in some dark places and I didn't immediately commit that to pen or paper or to tape, but eventually it does become a part of your worldview and your creation. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's, even if you can be both a reflection of the time, the turbulent times, and kind of above it, really. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and the whole framing of this series with James Baldwin, where he has written a lot about how everyone's suffering oftentimes feels like it isolates us, but suffering in a way can be a bridge because everyone suffers in their own way. And we're all alone in this world in some way. We all come in this world alone and go out this world alone. But that suffering, it bridges us and actually connects us together.
Yeah, there's very few ways to communicate that suffering, I'd say, other than through art. Like, maybe I'm just not a big feelings person, but it's definitely a different kind of outlet.
It's absolutely necessary, and I think in us all is the potential to create. I think the consciousness allows us the creative potential, and oftentimes a lot of people don't have that cultivated. They don't have the space, they don't have the environment or the people around them that help them with the cultivation of their creative faculties. And I guess what I'm asking is, people who may be looking to create and are aspiring to create art, what advice would you give them?
So at the risk of, this is probably going to sound kind of circular, but you just have to start somewhere. Like, you don't need to go into it with a grand design. In fact, I would recommend against that, because then you'll just get bogged down in details that are irrelevant to you at the beginning. You just have to start making something small. It doesn't have to be music. It doesn't have to be writing, painting, anything. Just bring some splash of color to your fucking life. And as you become more artistic, and it's a sense, you have to like refine your senses and all that. So just start doing something.
So in closing, the final question, thank you so much for your time and for sharing this beautiful piece of work that you've done. And where do you see optimism and hope?
I see, as shitty as 2020 was, I did see hope in the fact that musicians are still making music, writers are still writing, people are out in the streets just during a fucking pandemic fighting for what they believe in and against injustice. And you know, it just shows you that life will go on.